had an experience with credit card fraud that caused so much unnecessary stress and anxiety. I spent hours on the phone and in chats with my credit card company. I had to get 2 different cards before the fraud stopped, and I was so worried about what was going to happen to my money in my bank account. And I sometimes have the fear that it's going to happen again, right? And that's why I'm so excited to introduce You Are the Healer's newest sponsor, Aura, an app for protecting online data and personal information. Cleaning up my information not only helps reduce the amount of spam I get, but it protects me from hackers who could use this information to help them access things like my social media accounts, bank accounts, and other sensitive information. Protecting yourself and your personal information is a form of self-care, I swear. Go to my sponsor, aura.com/healer to get a 14-day free trial and have peace of mind knowing your information is safe. Again, that's Aura, AURA.com/healer for your 2-week free trial. You Are the Healer is sponsored by BetterHelp. Therapy is mandatory because there's absolutely nothing wrong with seeking help. I think every person who walks this earth needs therapy, honestly. I'm stoked to be connected with BetterHelp to offer affordable and accessible therapy resources. The link is in my show notes, and you can also go to betterhelp.com/healer. That's better, HELP.com/healer. Now let's get into this episode. Welcome back to You Are the Healer. I'm your host, Sydney Rinderknecht, where I use my experience through my job as a psych nurse and my own personal experience with mental health to give you guys tips and tricks and empower you to be your own healer and to remind you that you have everything that you need inside of yourself on your healing journey. And so we are in the season of spice, and I'm so excited about this topic. I'm also, I will admit, incredibly nervous to be talking about some of the things that I'll be sharing in this episode, because today we will be talking about queerness and sexual identity and how that's spicy, how it's sacred, how there's pros and cons to navigating your identity, especially in the world we live in today. And so I know that this message is incredibly important, especially now in our political climate. And I'm going to be brave and share some things about myself that sometimes they're kind of hard to talk about. And even though I'm sitting here like by myself, I just know that this message is going to be heard by people who don't know this information about me. And so let's just get into it. Let's just start talking. Usually I have like a big structure for how I'm going to do episodes, but this one I really just wanted to talk from the heart. I wanted to talk from my personal experience because I know that sharing stories is so powerful. And my intention for this episode is that hopefully being vulnerable and sharing some things that I've experienced will help not only people feel less alone, but help people feel more comfortable to express themselves and feel safe and supported when they choose to kind of lay their heart out. And even if it's not on the same topic of queerness and sexuality, I know that vulnerability really paves the way for more vulnerability and more connection. And so my hope is that through this episode, you'll hear stories that you resonate with, or maybe that resonate with other people, and you share it to them. And then basically in turn, I'm hoping that through, not just this episode, but all of the work that I'm doing, that this world slowly starts moving towards becoming a more loving and accepting space, because I truly believe that love is the highest vibration of the universe. Love is more powerful than anything else. And sometimes our society, other people, even ourselves get tripped up in fear. I really think fear is what holds us back from love. In any sense. I know that a lot of times people think the opposite of love is hate, but what I truly believe is the opposite of love is fear. And when people are being discriminatory, full of judgment, hateful, whatever, I think it's truly because there's a fear inside of them that is very strong. And I also believe at the end of the day, love overpowers all of that. And so I'm coming at this episode with the intention of love and really just being my true authentic self, and hoping that by doing so, I give other people the same permission to be their true authentic selves. So let's get into this topic. Why is learning about embracing queerness and queer joy and sexuality, why is it relevant to our mental health? And why are you going to take the time to learn about this? So even if you're not queer, lots of people are. Actually, let me just define what being queer is, because maybe you don't even know what that is. Being queer is essentially anything that's not straight and cisgender. So straight meaning you are attracted to the opposite gender identity. You're a man, you're attracted to a woman. You're a woman, you're attracted to a man. And cisgender is you're in one of the two traditional gender binaries. You identify as a man or you identify as a woman. That is straight and cisgendered. So queer is essentially everything else. Queer is this like umbrella term that fits in all of the LGBTQ plus identities and things that aren't represented by the binaries and straight sexuality, basically. So queer is everything but. And I used to really hate this term because it originates from discrimination. Queer was a term that people used as a slur against anyone that was LGBTQ plus, anyone that was different. And so I had a hard time kind of taking claim of this word because it felt like it was so rooted in oppression. And I love that the queer community has reclaimed this word. And I had to fight a lot of internalized homophobia and shame myself to even feel comfortable using this word. So that is what queer is. And the reason why I'm specifically talking about it and why I'm nervous about it is because this last year or so, I've had a true whirlwind experience with my sexual identity. It's something that I feel like I realized a lot later in my life for a number of reasons. And I've learned so much about myself and the world and my mental health because of discovering this part of my identity. And I really just want to share it in hopes that it helps somebody else. So I'm like so nervous. I'm sitting here like by myself, but I just know that people are going to hear this. And okay, so in this last year, it's not like I've known about my sexuality for a while, but I haven't identified with it. I haven't told other people about it. I was very much closeted and shameful about who I was and the people that I'm attracted to. And so in this last year, to my close family and to my friends, I came out as pansexual. So what that means is I'm attracted to people of all gender identities. And it's something that I knew from a young age, but I never stepped into expressing my sexuality because part of my sexuality is I am attracted to men. And that was very much rewarded growing up. That was accepted. That was, I feel like celebrated almost like, oh my gosh, you have a boyfriend. Like how awesome. Whereas I had thoughts about women at like age 5. I was very young when I realized like I'm attracted to multiple genders and not just men, women, like non-binary. I like to make the joke that nobody's safe. Like I think everybody's hot. But I had these thoughts at a very young age and I didn't think anything was wrong with them. Like I remember being 5 and having super gay thoughts and I was like, that's dope. Like I remember enjoying it. And then a little of my character backstory, I grew up most of my life in the South, in Texas. And I lived in Singapore when I was like 5 to 8. And so I remember having those thoughts when I was in Singapore, when I was, living overseas with my family. And I didn't really have a lot of, discrimination, judgment against anyone, any queerness. Like that wasn't a thing. It was just my family's pretty accepting. I never expressed any of these things because I was a child, but I didn't actively see the discrimination until I moved to Texas again. So I remember when I was in 3rd grade, so when I moved back to Texas, one of my best friends, he's gay. And I mean, we're in elementary school, so it's not like you're actively telling people about your sexuality. But he had long hair and he was flamboyant. I fucking love him. I still do. And I remember watching him get bullied, like hard, physically bullied, just picked on relentlessly, and I think the reason I'm sharing that now is because I learned at a really young age that it's not safe to be anything but straight. It's not safe because of the environment that I was in the South. Unfortunately, there's still a lot of hate for people that are different or queer, or honestly, anyone that questions the status quo. So I had a really hard time growing up in Texas. But my, little 8-year-old brain saw my best friend get bullied, and I said, that can't happen to me. So I'm just not going to express this part of myself. And it was very, very subconscious. I never actively made a decision of like, oh, no, I'm just going to hide this part of me because I was so young. And so that's why it took me until my 20s to really identify as queer and LGBTQ plus whatever, because as a little kid, I completely repressed this part of myself subconsciously. And then growing up, as I got older, I was a cheerleader in high school. And in our locker room, there was like subtle bullying going on of this one girl on our team. Like, oh, this girl's a lesbian. Like, don't change in front of her. Like, she's going to watch you. And it's just like, I just got all of these subliminal messages, like very much almost like I would equate it to like what a microaggression is kind of like it's not overtly this person's gay and they're wrong for that, but it's like the subtle like jokes about gay people and it being like just little jabs and things like that just really to me solidified, okay, this is not a space that I can express this part of myself. And because a big part of my identity is also being attracted to men, I wasn't conscious of the fact that I was suppressing this part of myself because I was still expressing, my sexuality, my attraction. It was just to only men. And I didn't realize how harmful that was for myself. And I mean, I've struggled with my mental health like since I was a kid. And I didn't realize how much of a part of my struggle was, I'm like about to cry. Oh my gosh. I didn't realize how much a part of my struggle was not being my true authentic self because I wasn't even consciously aware of this part of myself because I had so much shame and repression from it, just from the environment that I grew up in as a kid. And I want to say my family is very accepting. And so I don't even have the barriers that a lot of, unfortunately, queer people have of like, I came out to my parents and they were like, great, love this. How can I support you? My identity isn't really like something that bothers my family. And so I just have so much love for the people that are facing a lot of barriers in the queer community. And I mean, it's so deeply tied to our mental health for so many reasons. A lot of people that are LGBTQ plus are more likely to be homeless because their families aren't supportive of them and they will literally kick them out. They would rather have their child live on the streets than be gay or trans or queer in any way. And it just breaks my heart because being queer and embracing your sexual identity, first of all, I just want to say, like, your sexual identity is not a fucking choice, okay? If it was a choice, why would I be attracted to men? But it's not a choice, right? And so we're discriminating people against something that is out of their control. And there's just so much harm done because, like, your sexuality and your identity is so deeply personal. It's who you love. It's who you want to spend your time with. Like, and not being able to express that version of you, oh my gosh, there's so much harm. There is so much harm with it. And again, I know that people that are actively discriminating against someone for something that's out of their control, whether it's their sexuality, their race, their class, whatever, I truly believe that it is more out of fear than anything else. There's fear that things are going to change. There's fear that maybe part of them is that way too, and they don't even want to tap into that. And so having their kid express their sexual identity, you have to completely reject it because you're so scared of your own. Or maybe you're scared that they're going to be discriminated against. It's layered. Okay, it's layered. So in keeping with the theme of the season of spice, I want to talk about when queerness burns or when your sexuality burns. So that's when, there's a lot of negativity and things to deal with and navigate. And I'm sharing these things because it's like, let's learn how to handle the heat. Let's learn how to enjoy the flavor of it. Let's not let this burn us and keep us down and want us to water ourselves down to be palatable, okay? Don't water yourself down to be digestible. Be the full, complex, unforgettable flavor that you are. You are the spice. If people can't handle that, that's on them. But in this episode, I really just want to encourage you to truly be yourself and embrace your full identity. And even if you're not someone that identifies as queer, 9% of the population, of the world population, identifies as queer or LGBTQ+. And that number is increasing. Okay, so 9% of the population identifies this way when there's active discrimination against people who are LGBTQ. So I feel like that number is truly higher. It's just the environment that we're in isn't safe enough that people feel safe to report it. But that statistic is growing. About 21% of Gen Z, so I think that's 1997 to 2003, if you're born in those years, 21% identify as queer. So queer people are all around you. If you're not one of them, there's probably some of your coworkers are queer, your best friends, your family members. It's around. And so by taking time to learn and educate about queerness and about something that is different than you, you will in turn be a supportive place for those people. You will not just have tolerance. I kind of hate the term tolerance because it's like, oh, I'm tolerating you for being different. It's like, no, I want to embrace you. I want to celebrate you, because queerness, and this is just one part of our identity. And our identity is made up of all of these little facets. And it's not something to be tolerated. It's something to be celebrated and to be enjoyed. So when does it burn? When is the queer spice burn? It's hot. It's hard to handle. I'd already talked a little bit about discrimination. I just want to touch on it a little bit more because it's definitely actively something to be concerned about, especially in the United States and our political climate. But expanding further into the world, actively right now, in 2025, there are 64 countries that have laws that say it is illegal to be homosexual. There are countries where there are laws banning sex between men. There are countries where you are not able to get married. And there's countries where you can actively be thrown in jail for being gay, for part of your identity that is out of your control. So this is very relevant that we talk about it, because that discrimination, of course, it affects mental health. That fear, that feeling like you can't express yourself because it's unsafe to do so. I mean, I know people, I live in Denver. Denver is so gay. And I know people that have been hate crimed in Denver, just walking around, right? And in the United States, so in 2015, there's a Supreme Court case that made same-sex marriage legal. I actually remember exactly where I was on the day, which is so funny because I wasn't consciously aware that I was, queer or anything but attracted to men. But I remember it was Warped Tour. And if you know me, Warped Tour was like the best day of the year every year. But I was sick. I had 103-degree fever. And so I couldn't rally to go to Warped Tour. And I was devastated. But I remember I woke up and I saw, oh my gosh, same-sex marriage is legal. And so I remember being on Twitter and like having a fucking field day, just retweeting, seeing all these like love is love, like very celebratory posts and stuff. And I remember my sister and my best friend went to Warped Tour and they came back and they were like, it was awesome. It was just like a big celebration all day. And so I bring up that Supreme Court case because same-sex marriage in the United States is federally protected. But as we know, Supreme Court cases can be overruled. And there are, in the United States, 25 states right now that have a plan to ban same-sex marriage if that Supreme Court case gets overruled. And as we know, maybe you don't know, similar thing happened with Roe v. Wade. So Roe v. Wade was a Supreme Court case that made abortion safe and legal for women in the United States, federally, at the Supreme Court level. So that means in any state, that right was protected. Well, that Supreme Court case got overturned. I'm going to do an episode on politics. Okay, I have to. But that case got overruled, and now we see many states in the United States, it is illegal. You can be arrested for getting an abortion. So I bring that up because this is a very real thing to fear. I actually have people in my life that I know that have a plan if same-sex marriage becomes illegal to move states, because that is the reality of what we're dealing with, because these states actively have a plan. As soon as that Supreme Court case gets overruled, it's illegal. And like, oh, it just makes me so mad. Because how would you feel if you're a straight person? How would you feel if one day your right to be married to who you love got taken away? You're already married, or maybe you're about to get married, and you cannot just because of the government and a law. I'm sorry, what? It's actually an abomination. I'm not going to go too on a tangent about this, but of course your mental health is going to be affected when your identity is actively being legally discriminated against by the government. Okay. When else? I'm going to shut my yapper because I'm going to do an episode on politics. But anyways, when else does queerness burn? I know from personal experience that when you repress your identity, that has a whole slew of mental health effects. It's essentially like in the last episode when I talked about masking with neurodiversity. It's like when you're repressing part of your identity, you're not showing up as your true authentic self, which has a lot of internal conflict. You're not feeling like you're truly loved and accepted by the people who are around you because they don't know the true you. They don't know all of you because it might be unsafe to express your identity, or maybe you're so scared. I want to talk about like the fear that comes with showing up as your true self and your identity, because the reality is when you show up as yourself, people can reject you. People can say, actually, I hate you for that part of yourself. And again, that's on them. It's not your responsibility, to make yourself palatable. It's not your responsibility to make people be okay with your sexuality. It's completely on other people if they want to accept you or not. And it has nothing to do with how worthy you are and how deserving of love you are. We all deserve love and we all deserve to feel accepted. And sometimes when you're in an identity that isn't truly embraced and accepted by society, you're going to face rejection. And that rejection, that lack of acceptance for who you are at your core, again, this isn't something that you can control. So that rejection for that part of you feels so deeply personal. And it's so, I just think it's like so sad to think that people care, like that people, it would get in the way of forming a connection with someone as who they're attracted to. Like that just makes me so sad for people that aren't accepting of anyone on the LGBTQ plus spectrum, because like you're limiting yourself and your connection, and the world needs so much more of that. I mean, we are getting lonelier and lonelier and lonelier as a society. And so I just really hope that we can move the needle more towards love and acceptance and less away from fear and hate and discrimination, because like there's so many more important things we could be focusing on. Something I really want to touch on about queerness is queer heartbreak, because God, that is a experience that is unlike anything else. And so I will share some stories about my experience with queer heartbreak and just talk about like why it's different, because I've heard people, before I was ever like dating anyone that wasn't a man, I heard about like queer heartbreak and how bad it hurts, but I didn't understand until it happened to me. So a little story time. So in this last year or so, I really had more, I don't want to say confidence is the right word, but maybe we'll use confidence. I was confident in my sexual identity. I'm like, you know what? I'm not just attracted to men. I'm not just attracted to women. I'm attracted to everybody. And so then I decided I would like to date somebody who is not a man, right? So I started dating somebody. It was my first queer dating experience. And honestly, it was lovely. And what was so cool about it was that I carved out this space for myself. I was giving myself permission to express myself. I was giving myself that self-acceptance in order to get to know somebody in a romantic way who had a different gender identity than anyone I've ever dated. So it was different, because the way that we're socialized through our genders is completely different. And so I was fucking loving dating somebody. This person was non-binary. And it was just really cool and different. And it inevitably ended, right? And so that queer heartbreak was just different because it was, oh my gosh. So I had cultivated this space for myself. I had cultivated, this acceptance of my identity, and I was giving myself permission to express myself. And that was all new. That was all like, for the first time, I was, had romantic feelings for somebody who wasn't a man. For the first time, I was, going on dates with someone who wasn't a man. And it was just this new and exciting experience. And I want to say, in my experience with queer heartbreak, it wasn't like this relationship ending was devastating. It wasn't like the way that the breakup happened was extra heartbreaking than anything else ending. But for me, what it really was is like, this is the first time that I allowed myself to be myself and to act on the thoughts and the desires that I had, and to open myself up to be loved by somebody who isn't a man. And it was really nice to cultivate that space for myself. And so I really was grieving having that space to express myself. And I was grieving who I was allowed to be in this relationship. So when I was with this person, I felt like I was fully expressing my identity, and it was so exciting and it was new. And it really, like, in queer relationships, it's not like the traditional dating, marriage, kids, now you're accepted by society, because for your identity, you're not really accepted by society. And so it's like you're creating a relationship like it's your own little house, your own foundation. And so when that ended, I was like, oh my God, I don't have this anymore. I don't have this space to express my identity and my sexuality how I want to. And it was really grieving something that I felt like I worked really hard to cultivate and that I was able to share with somebody else. And then I had the rug pulled out from under me. Another layer of queer heartbreak is there's this extra shame around it because of the nature of being queer and the societal lack of acceptance with it. So I didn't even feel like I grieved it as much as I normally would of a regular heartbreak, because not everyone even knew that I was dating this person. Not everyone knew that I was having this experience. And so I felt like the grief was different because it wasn't something that I could be like, oh my gosh, I'm just going through a breakup right now, because people didn't even know that I was dating this person because I was so scared to tell people that I was queer. And so it's like if the world doesn't give you a space to celebrate your love, then you might not feel the same space to grieve it and to validate your experience when you lose it. And so this is like invisible heartbreak. And so that's why the shame and the silence that comes from being in the queer community and from repressing your identity can be so harmful, because heartbreak is hard enough on its own. But when it's invisible, when you don't feel like you can talk about it with other people, it is so much more difficult to manage. And I just really have a lot of gratitude for my friends, because my friends were so there for me when I was going through this experience. And at the same time, like, all the people that were there for me had never had this experience. And so it was really hard because I felt so alone and isolated. And that's why I want to talk about it, because there's so many ways that our identity can shape our mental health. And this is something that like I've heard people talk about, but I've never like truly connected with somebody over this type of like queer heartbreak before, because first of all, like only 9% of the population is LGBTQ+. So like the stats behind it is likely like not everybody's going to have this experience. And so I really just want to share my experience in hopes that like if you've been through something similar, you are not alone. It hurts different. It's a different flavor of hurt, okay? And I didn't really know how to explain it until I started like researching for this episode, but it's just that isolation, that silence, that lack of acceptance from society just makes it that much more different. And like I'm going to talk about this later, but like queer joy is so incredible. It is awesome. It is fantastic to be able to express yourself and be truly joyful with other people who are in a similar, identity as you. And just that is so euphoric. But that also means that like the lows and the heartbreaks are also going to be pretty painful, because that's kind of the nature of things. It's like as high as you can get is also as low as you can get. And a big part of queer heartbreak is like questioning your identity. I know that like after this heartbreak, I was like, yeah, I'm just going to go back to dating men. Like, yeah, I know what that's like. And yeah, it might not be as awesome and as great, but it's predictable. And I really gave this whole queer thing a go, and my feelings are big hurt. So I'm not going to do it again. That was like a big route that I took after this, queer dating experience that I was in ended. I was like, never mind. I'm not gay at all. I am so straight, and I'm only going to date men. And that was a big like protection mechanism, because the queer heartbreak hurt so different. I wasn't expecting it to hurt in the ways of like my safe space that I created, my identity, this environment that I had carved out for myself and really enjoyed being able to be in was gone. This container that I created was gone. And so naturally I was like, screw this. I'm never trying this again, because it hurt so bad. And I just want to say like that was truly from a place of like wanting to avoid pain, and not, I think a lot of times when we make decisions, it's like we're avoiding pain or we're seeking pleasure. And that was very much, I wanted to avoid pain. I wasn't running back towards dating men because I'm like, I love men. Men are great. That's a whole other topic. But I was really just trying to escape that true nauseating pain that is queer heartbreak. The other side of queer heartbreak is queer healing hits differently, because you're not doing the typical things that society is telling you to do. You're defining it for yourself. Queer healing can lead to radical self-acceptance. It can lead to radically reclaiming who you are and your identity and doing it unapologetically. Queer healing can look like creating a community, not just one person, but a community of people who love and embrace and support you for who you are to your core. Queer healing looks like creating art and softness and acceptance. And it can make your identity stronger, not smaller. But you do have to fight the urge when you're in the thick of queer heartbreak to run back to, be accepted by society and going back to your old ways. At least that's something that I really deeply experienced. So when it comes to queer heartbreak, you don't have to grieve quietly. You don't have to question your worth or if your relationship experience was valid or not, because it was. And you don't have to go numb to protect yourself. It's very tempting to do so. But the healing that comes from it is so glorious and beautiful. And we're going to get into it. We're going to talk about when your queerness is delicious and it's flavorful and it tastes so good that you're like, I can't imagine being any different than who I am. Embracing your queerness looks like authenticity. And authenticity is such an incredible thing to be. It's to just truly be who you are and to be confident in who you are. And when we claim our identity and when we are brave and step out and express ourselves in our authentic way, we are going to not only feel so free and good and in alignment, and your self-esteem will boost. There's a lot of pluses that come from just truly being in your authenticity, whether it's in your sexual identity or literally any other category. When you are truly authentic, you will attract people into your life that are truly meant for you. That if you're hiding behind a mask and pretending to be someone you're not, when you're connecting with people, they're not connecting with the real you. And so when you embrace your identity, whatever form your identity looks like, you're being authentic to yourself and you will call in people that are meant for you. And not just people, you will call in places and things and experiences that are meant for you. But that can't happen unless you claim who you are and you're brave and you take a step out and you say, this is who I am. Okay. And I do want to talk about coming out because, first of all, what a weird concept. What a weird concept. Straight people don't have to come out at all. So why is it a thing? I mean, like, I understand, but it's so stupid to me that it's like, hey guys, this is my sexual identity. Okay, now what's for dinner? It's weird to me. And I had honestly a pretty intense experience with it. So, I came out to my friends like casually, like it just was like, oh, like this person's kind of hot. Like, oh, I kind of want to date women, like whatever. That wasn't a big deal for me because my friends are incredible. And I know that they would never think less of me for that. But I really wanted to come out to my parents before producing anything anywhere, sharing anything on the internet about my sexual identity, because I did not want them to find out, not from me directly, because that just felt important. So it was over Thanksgiving break this year. When I tell you I'm very fresh, like this wasn't even a year ago. And I knew that my parents would be accepting. My parents are awesome. And I was still so nervous to do it just because it's like, oh my gosh, they're like seeing me. It's like that nauseating anxiety that comes from being really vulnerable is like, vulnerability paves the way for connection. And vulnerability also, when you are vulnerable, you can be rejected. And so it was so nerve-wracking for me. And I remember I told my mom first. We were actually fighting about something else. And I was like, well, I also just want to say this, like, I'm pansexual and I'm attracted to people of all gender identities. And I just want you to know that. I want you to hear it from me first. And she was like, okay, like, that's awesome. Thanks for telling me. She's like, did you think I would care? Like, did you think I'd be upset about that? I was like, no, but I'm nervous. My heart was pounding. And then I came out to my dad, and my dad, I love my dad. He's probably listening to this first before anybody else, but he was like, how can I support you? Like, is there anything I need to know? Like, it was just a very safe space. And I'm really, really grateful for that. And also I experienced some hardships in the coming out process because I've learned that you don't just come out once, okay? Coming out is kind of like a lifelong experience because not everyone you meet knows your identity. And I also just want to say, people aren't entitled to your identity, okay? I've experienced in my own life and also like in representation in media and talking to other people that feel entitled to your identity. And so no one is obligated to tell you who they're attracted to. No one is obligated to tell you these very deep personal things to themselves. I think it's awesome when we express ourselves and we are like, this is me, this is who I am. Like, I don't give a fuck. But at the same time, if someone's choosing to disclose their identity to you or not, that is their decision, that is their right, that is up to them. And so something I experienced was backlash from people that I didn't directly come out to. And they were offended that I didn't disclose this information to them officially. When I'm like, oh my gosh, it just seems so silly to me that it's like, oh, I have to tell everybody about my sexual identity. Like, what if I don't want to talk about it? What if it's none of your fucking business? Okay? What if I don't care if you know or not because it's not relevant right now? I don't know. And maybe there's still some internalized homophobia going on inside of me that makes me think that, but it just really frustrated me because you are not entitled to know about anyone's sexuality or their identity. If they choose to disclose that information to you, that is awesome. But if they don't, it's not about you, okay? People's sexuality is deeply personal to them, and who they choose to disclose that information with is completely their choice. You are not obligated to have an official coming out with every single person who identifies as queer in your life. Are you going to treat them any differently? Why does it matter? Why does it matter? Okay, that's my little tangent on coming out, okay? But again, it's a lifelong process. Like the other day, I came out to some of my coworkers because it was relevant to a story I was telling. And I was like, oh, I don't know if they know this about me. And it's like, it gets easier as you go. When I came out to my parents, I was so nervous. And I wasn't even worried that they'd reject me, but I was so nervous because I hadn't even really accepted these parts of myself. And now I'm telling other people, so that makes it very real, right? And so more people that you meet, it might be relevant and it might be something that you do want to share with people. And so it's not just a one-time thing. Coming out is a lifetime process. And it's really scary to open up and tell people about this part of you. But it also, when you claim your queerness, it gives people the permission to do the same for themselves. When you radically accept yourself, when you claim who you are, you say, this is who I am, I don't care what you think, because I'm going to truly be authentic in myself, you aren't just liberating yourself. You are liberating the collective. You embracing your queerness gives other people the permission to be themselves, okay? And that doesn't just mean the permission to also be queer in who they are. It can, right? So like through this last year, I've really talked to my friends a lot about like my identity and what it means and these like experiences that I've been having. And through doing that, I've had multiple people in my life say like, Sydney, you have really like allowed me to feel a lot more comfortable in my identity and my sexuality just because you're so open about it and you're embracing who you are. And that's really inspiring to me. And when you are truly stepping into your authenticity in any way, you are giving people permission to do the same. And that could be about your sexuality. That could be about what hair color you dye your hair. That could be about what music you like. If you're unabashedly, this is something I started learning. This is so random, but All Time Low is my favorite band of all time. I love them. And I used to be closeted about it because I thought people would make fun of me. They're like, that's a pop punk band. Who even listens to them anymore? You know what? Who cares? I love this band, okay? And me embracing my love for something, whether it's my sexuality, whether it's a silly band that I adore, that gives other people the permission to also be their authentic selves. And that is sacred. And that is important. And that is healing. And when we heal ourselves, it is never on the individual level. It is collective. Whether you know it or not, you liberating yourself, you being authentic, you embracing who you are in any way, shape, or form, that gives other people the permission to do the same. And I think that is so fucking cool. It's so important. And that's why I want to talk about this, is because yes, there is, discrimination and difficulties and heartbreak that comes with being queer. And there's also the flip side of the coin, which is radical self-love, self-acceptance, authenticity, living as your true self, giving others the permission to be themselves, whether you know it or not. And I want to end on queer joy. My gosh, queer joy is so incredible. So when I think of queer joy, I think of like, obviously very colorful, right? Like rainbow, whatever, but like colorful and flavorful in many, many ways. So this is like drag. Drag shows are so dope and joyful. And like, I went to one the other day and they had this whole spiel on how we need to like love and accept other people and not just be an ally, but like actively be an ally. So if you see something discriminatory, to actually intervene and speak up and say something to protect those people that a lot of people like to, go to LGBTQ spaces, even if they're not in that identity, which is okay. It's awesome. But like, if you're going to reap the benefits of a community, make sure that you are defending the community and standing up for them when you see wrongdoing and discrimination. Anyways, another part of Queer Joy is I think of LGBTQ plus clubs and how fucking fun they are. And it's very much like, just be yourself. That is like the ultimate message. And I think that's why Queer Joy is so special, is it's because it's like, you're free. You're just being who you are. And there's spaces where queer people can get together and just truly be who they are. And I think that that's so beautiful. I think of like, I went to this one, it was like a political activism queer art market. And I just simply had the best time ever, because it's like these people are expressing themselves. When you face things like discrimination and shame and these really painful experiences, you can alchemize those and turn it into something absolutely beautiful. So this political art market that I went to was gorgeous, because people were taking this deep rooted pain and transforming it into art, into expression, into rage, into activism. And it was just so cool, because like, yes, we could look at anything in our lives and be like, it's too spicy, it burns, I need a glass of milk, I'm never eating that again, fuck that, right? Or we can look at it and say, there is power in this flavor. This flavor is strong and bold and delicious. How can we harness it? How can we make it into a delicious dish that not only I can eat, but everybody can eat, that I can share it with other people? So that is what I wanted to say about queerness and its joys and its sorrows. And I really just thank you for listening to this message. If this episode resonated with you, please share it with someone who you think needs to hear it. And I would also love if you could DM me or email me any queer joy story. So anything where you were truly being authentically yourself and you experienced joy from it, something lovely. And I would love to share some of these stories in a future episode for the season. So go ahead and DM me or email me any queer joy story you have. I would also just love to consume them for my own benefit, because I think that queer joy is so incredible and so sweet and so special. So thank you so much for listening to this episode. Thank you for giving me the space to express myself. Thank you for listening to You Are the Healer. Thank you for sharing the episodes. Thank you for subscribing. Thank you for commenting and engaging on whatever platform that you listen on. You can always follow me on Instagram and TikTok at You Are the Healer. And until next time, may you be well. If you've made it this far in the episode, I have a treat for you. I am launching my one-on-one coaching program, and I now have a limited number of spots available for clients. So if you are struggling with taking care of yourself, if you have a hard time regulating your emotions, you just feel stuck, let me help you transform your life. I'm looking for people who are willing to do the deep inner work to create change in their lives. If this sounds like a hell yes, fill out the interest form in the description of the episode. And for everybody that fills out the form, I will email you a fun surprise as a thank you. So again, thank you so much for supporting You Are the Healer, and I look forward to working with some of you as your new coach.